Welcome to Fox Encounter. I am your host, Fox. Please consider taking a few seconds to subscribe, drop a like on the video, and share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more content and enjoy the episode.
And now, suspense.
Not so much on YouTube, like the comments and stuff like that. A lot of the engagement from my videos comes from Instagram, which is funny, which I think is like funny. Like, because people will, you know what, I'll share the link to my new video and all that stuff. I think it's just because there's much more of like a sense of communication, I guess, and stuff like that through social media rather than YouTube. So a lot of times too, I'll share the link to my video on a story, and then they'll like, you know, somebody will respond to my DMs like, oh, this video is really good, or I thought this was really funny, or this was like really insightful from what you said. And so I'm like, all right, that's cool, you know. So that's why like I don't really care so much about anymore about when there's not like a ton of comments on my videos, because I'm getting most of those comments on Instagram, which is so funny to me. And I'm like, all right, cool. Sometimes I'd be like, well, then just comment that on my video on YouTube. But now I'm just like, it's whatever, you know, like as long as people are enjoying it or whatever, any way you engage with me about that video, it doesn't matter. Funny enough, like in this modern day, a lot of people don't have YouTube accounts. Like they don't, like they just watch videos and have never made an account. Because I'll get people in that I know are not subscribers or whatever, because I've never seen them before, in the DMs, and be like, oh yeah, I just watched your video about this and I thought it was really funny. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, thanks. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are, but thanks. Or even too, like I'll get friends of the actors and stuff that I talk to, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you did that video, you did the interview with this person or this person. Like, I remember I saw that and that was really good. And I was like, oh, like I didn't even know you knew who I was. Like, that's awesome.
Right.
Putting out content and kind of having like an idea of the kind of response you'll get, or sometimes you'll put something out that you're like, oh man, I really wish that would have done better, because, you know, you spend a lot of time on it and you think you put a lot of effort into it. But are there any videos that you have either recently or from whenever, the span of the creation and stuff of your content, is there like a one video that you knew you either weren't going to get a ton of response from, or something that you knew was going to get like a lot of negative responses, but you're like, I got to put this out anyway because it's something that has to be said?
So I had a feeling, I mentioned it earlier, but I have other ones, but I had a feeling that when I did my Halloween Kills review and my Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness review, I had a feeling that this was going to be one of those things where I was in the minority. And it happens, like, this is all subjective. And in the subjectivity, some people will also agree with me. So but you know what, sometimes we know sometimes what the majority can be. So I was aware of that. So when I did Halloween Kills, I kind of knew that I just had a feeling like people would be like, no, but the kills and Michael Myers and so on and so forth. And I was like, well, what's a good way to, and granted, I wasn't thinking about people when I did it, but I kind of realized me being comedic kind of curtailed some of the negativity. I remember people saying that they didn't necessarily agree, but it's like people couldn't really, I think people saw that I wasn't like in some like, this is garbage, or this is like, what's going on with the Halloween. I was just like, I want to see a Halloween musical, and I'm going to perform what one of the songs, you know, and it's like, you can't say anything to that. So that's what was fun about it. Same thing with Multiverse of Madness. It just hit me, but like the jokes I was throwing out in that, like, I don't know. I think it curtails a lot of that, but I also knew that they were unpopular opinions. Just thought of another one. One that I definitely knew was going to get negativity was the Nope review. And I was and the thing is, I literally was posting on IG on my story. I don't know what film or TV show that's from, but it's that clip where the guy decides he's just going to slap everyone in sight at this backyard barbecue. And just like slap.
Larry, what the hell are you doing? Larry, you can't just... Oh,
Larry, are you all right? How did...
And I literally put like, okay, the cast and crew and everyone involved Like, we need to step outside and have a conversation. And I just posted that clip. And it was crazy because, I mean, I get some engagement in my inbox from time to time, mostly from people I know. But when I said that, everyone was just like, "Oh my gosh, like what are you watching?" And that's why I came back and put that picture of everyone like looming into the camera, because I'm like, this is my inbox right now. Now everyone wants to know what film this is. But I was so, I'm a balanced person. So even what I don't like, I know how to balance out what I have to say. I don't feel the need to be inflammatory or over the top. I mean, if that's really how I felt, then fine. But it's never quite that. It doesn't call for that kind of emotion for me. But this was the one where I was kind of like, look, like this is it's just not working for me. I just even the title where I said, whack characters. This was it. I was like, that's just, you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. And of course, I got a lot of pushback. And of course, we have folks who disagreed, but actually I had one comment where it was like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it because of this, and that, but I'm actually glad that you were expressing your opinion because it doesn't have to be what everyone else thinks. I'm like, okay, see, we understand each other. We're here.
Yeah.
But then there were some other comments where, and I purposely, it gave me motivation because I think that was the best part of the video for me. It was the most gratifying part of the video. And I didn't want to include it at first. I'm like, this is going to make this longer. I want this to be shorter. But that whole discourse about people saying, you didn't like this because you didn't understand it. I'm like, look, I am so tired of seeing this in comment sections and this and that. And the reason why it's an issue for me is because it's a superiority complex, or it's your way to explain away and dismiss other opinions. I'm like, you just didn't get it. And I'm like, you do realize that that's not how life works. And it is possible to have like this isn't just cut and dry. Like and there are some films where initially I didn't understand, and I understand that can affect how you might feel or if you didn't get everything, but sometimes I got it all and those ideas just didn't work. And for me, no, even though the concept is promising, the ideas are promising, do I feel like it came together in a way that, was effective to me or that I fully connected to? No. And there was just no getting around it. So I would say that's probably the biggest example of where I just was like, look, this is going to have to be the one and you guys are going to have to deal with it. So
yeah. And it's, I think when it comes to that too, like it's difficult to kind of voice your opinion. Sometimes it might feel intimidating because especially if it's someone like Jordan Peele, where like literally he can put out anything and everyone's like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing on earth. Whereas with me, I'm like, I mean, if it comes out and it's good, that's fine. Like for me, I don't, people will love something. All the, like, let's take all the examples that you had with Halloween Kills. Objectively, it's not a good movie. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many things to point, and even like Halloween Ends, there's just no getting around it. They're just not good movies. I'm sorry for, and you can like them, but when it comes to story and writing and all that stuff, they're just not that good. They're very underwhelming, but that doesn't mean that you still can't enjoy them, and that's fine. But we also gotta, call it how it is. So, and then with like, especially with the Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, there's a lot of people that will say, yeah, they're not good, but because it's Halloween and it's a brand that is so iconic and that everybody loves, they're gonna just be like, yeah, it was okay, or they're gonna make excuses for the bad writing, for just the bad storytelling, the bad ending. Like they're gonna make excuses for it because of that brand loyalty, and that comes along with same thing with like Jordan Peele's movies. If like he just kind of came out of nowhere, which is so weird to me that it's just like he made one horror movie and everyone's like, oh, this is like the next great horror iconic director. And I'm like, the dude has one movie. Like, where are you getting this from? But like, I get it. That's one of my controversial opinions when it comes to Jordan Peele. I'm very like mixed on the guy. Like I respect what he does, but I don't like everything he puts out. Like I get a lot of hate because I didn't like Get Out. And that was one of those movies too that like universally, like everybody loves for some reason. Like I get why they love it, but for me, it just didn't work. There's a lot of really cool ideas there, But for me,
Definitely. Yeah.
it falls short towards the end. And I always say this, I'm like, it's a good movie. It's not bad at all. It's just for me, a lot of the ideas and the execution of the stuff just didn't work for me. I can explain and give you every little detail of what I don't like. Most people would just be like, oh, it's trash. It's trash. It's like, no, but what about it is trash? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So with me, when it comes to like those kinds of movies and with like Get Out, I would tell them, I like the idea. I think it's a very good idea. But when it comes to the execution of it, the last like the third act of it, to me, just falls apart and just kind of becomes your generic horror thriller. So I was like, oh man, like everything leading up to that, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And then it just like devolves into your just like generic horror thriller. And I was just like, it just lost a lot of steam for me. And then when it came to Us, I really enjoyed that one. I was like, hey, I really like this. But everyone was coming at me like, what, you think Us is better than Get Out? Like, I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I just enjoy this more than this. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I enjoyed Nope. I don't love it. A lot of people I know, like, I feel like that one kind of divided a lot of people. Like, you either loved it or hated it. I don't know. Me, I was like, I enjoyed it. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I think it's just, it is what it is. All the concepts and stuff, people will tell you like, oh, you just didn't get it. When you do get it, but you just don't really care for it. One of those movies is Jennifer's Body for me. Like, I remember when that came out, like that's got a resurgence and everybody like loves it apparently, but obviously you all didn't love it when it came out because it flopped and it didn't do very well. But all of a sudden everyone's like, what? Like, I always loved it. It's like, that's one of those movies that's had a resurgence that I still don't care for, but people act as if I should. Just because it's like, it's like, oh no, it's a newfound respect for it. I was like, no, I get it. I just don't care. But that was one of those movies too, where a lot of people were trying to tell me like, oh, you didn't get it. Like, it's satirical. And I was like, no, I got it. I grew up watching, I get satire. I get it probably better than a lot of people because I grew up on British comedy. And if you grew up on British comedy, you know that like the satirical nature and just like the dry humor of British comedy, you get it. And so, yeah, when it got that resurgence and everyone's like, oh, you probably just didn't get it when it came out. I was like, nah, I got it, bro. I just don't care. But that's one of those things too that like really annoys me when people say that. It's like, you just didn't get it. Like, if say you didn't like Interstellar or say you didn't like Inception, they're just like, oh, you didn't get it. That's like the first thing they'll say.
Exactly.
Or even like Tenet, like pretty much any Christopher Nolan movie, I think.
Gosh, not Tenet.
Yeah. I think that's what I love so much about film and film discussion too, is that I find it fun when I can have an argument with someone about something. Like, I love it. I love the engagement. I never go into it with like a hot head and getting all upset about stuff. Like, I genuinely love discussing. And even sometimes too, I'll say something that I don't agree with just to get some kind of conversation going, because if everyone just agrees on something, that's so boring. We talk about that all the time in the film community. We talk about the fact that like, oh, a film is subjective and blah blah blah, but as soon as someone has an opinion that differs from, you know, the majority, it's like then it's like, no, you're just wrong. But I'm sure you're somebody who doesn't find it too difficult to like voice your opinion about stuff, even though you know it's going to be, you know, not as popular. It's not going to be a popular opinion.
Oh, not at all. I was actually making sure I had the right comment to reference for this. But what you were saying about like how you like engaging with people, especially like when there's pushback and things like that, I actually do as well. It's funny. It genuinely is funny to me, especially depending on what the response is. So I was trying to make sure I had the right example, but I did a review for Respect, which was the biopic about Aretha Franklin. And so the comment, I mean, and people, you know, had different thoughts, but no one was really like, oh, it was, people genuinely agreed, or they're like, oh, well, you know, maybe I had an issue with this or this here, or I wish I could have seen more, but no one was, you know, it was pretty even killed. And then someone came in and said, no disrespect intended, but the reason the general public has nothing to say about this movie is because it is the worst you can present. This is all caps. Because it is the worst you can present for the Queen of Soul. It was boring AF. The cast were cool, KOOL, but the writing was trash. They missed the mark on all levels. how could you see the Ray film, the Ray biopic, and
Mhm.
then look at this without throwing up in your mouth? These reviewers are lying to you. So here's the thing. When someone comes up here, my just by general principle, like I can only like go the opposite direction. Like it's not possible for me to jump up to reach you, because a lot of times it's very irrational and very emotional. And most of my day to day, like there's nothing that would call for that. So I was like, what's the best way to respond to this? So this is what I said. And even my responses now have changed a little bit. I wouldn't give it as much as this, but I was like, let's give this a moment. So I said, because he said that no, he started by saying no disrespect intended. So I said, well, I'm pretty sure referring to my personal opinion as a lie is intended as disrespect. Film, as with many things, is subjective. Everyone's experience varies according to their personal perspective. It is not a requirement for my experience to align with yours or anyone else's. Some people enjoyed the film, while others did not. We can agree to disagree without inflammatory commentary. Have a nice day. And that was it for me. And like I said, there are kind of variations of that. But I just feel like when people push back, like my responses, like especially like I've seen a couple of times of folks that really just try to like or say something about me. I think it was weird. I was on another video completely. I think it was like some kind of because I like some of the video essay channels. I think those are really cool, especially depending on like what the perspective is. It's very kind of niche stuff. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
And so I it was the most random thing. I might have been talking about like, oh, well, it could have been anything. Like one thing that surprised me about this movie, and I agree with this perspective, because one thing I saw, someone randomly responded to me. I'm responding to this person's channel and just saying what was great about this video essay. And they're like, well, you know what, man? Looking at your channel, it doesn't appear that you like anything. So I don't even know what to say. And I was just like, this is weird, because it's one thing for you to do this on my channel, but it's at the height of it's just at the height of confusion and just bizarre behavior to hop off of the channel that you're on, seeing a comment on this channel, hopping to the person's channel, scrolling, and I guess going off of the thumbnail. I don't know if they clicked on the videos, but going off the thumbnail or the titles, and then saying like, as a broad sweeping generalization, you don't like anything. And I was like, that's really strange. So what I responded back was, oh, you know what? I really appreciate you supporting the channel. Have an awesome day. And that was it. Like, what else is there to really say? And like I said, there are times where I can go a little bit deeper, like I did with that last one, where it's like, let's break down what subjectivity is and really get clinical with it. But most of the time for me, it's funny to me, because if people are looking for, like you said, like something hot-headed or some real intense response, then it's just not going to happen. There's this quote from a reality show that I heard years ago, and they basically said, people come for me all the time. They just don't find me. And I think, that's how it is for me. Like, whatever moment you're looking for is not going to happen, because it's additional. It just adds the incentive to kind of like diffuse it, because what can you say after I've extended myself and given you well wishes and been aggressively positive to what you've had to say, or aggressively polite to what you've had to say? And if you go back after that, then you really look like you're not operating in a rational mindset.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So I actually think it's really funny.
Yeah, it's funny that I've been accused, when you said that, I've been accused of being someone who doesn't like anything as well. And it's just so funny. I'm like, where do you get that from, though? Just because, and I kind of get it, but like, it's at the same time, it's like, I guess it just speaks to the general thing of just people gravitating more towards negative than positive. Like they can see you praise like 10 things, but as soon as you like, trash one thing, they're like, oh, you don't like anything, do you? It's like, but that one time that I said I didn't like something.
Exactly.
People, I'll watch this one hip hop YouTuber, and he's always, it kind of seems like he hates his fans because he's like constantly making videos about the fact that everybody who comments on his videos doesn't watch his whole video because they'll only listen or hear one part and then go off of that and just completely like go off on the video and be like, oh, you said this about this or this artist, and he'll go back at him like, you obviously didn't watch the entire video because otherwise you'd know that I didn't say that. And I've always found that concept like very interesting because it's so true. Like we don't really watch and we don't like, even when you're watching a video about a movie or something and somebody disagrees about something you love, they're not going to listen to the rest of that. They're just going to hear that part. I always find it so funny that people don't, they'll hear that one part and then that's it. They don't listen to the rest of the video or watch the rest of what you have to say. They're just going to go off of like that one little snippet that they heard.
Oh, yes. You already know that. That made me think about, there's someone that I've been following for some years, and they just do, they're real chill, laid back. They just do like recaps for occasional shows. It'll be like maybe one or two, maybe three at a time. And it's funny because in the video, they might ask a question, and because they're like, oh, is that, because, this is someone who's older. So sometimes they'll be like, you guys know, I have an old brain, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't such and such happen? And it's funny because whenever she says it, she usually will say like, okay, all I need is like one or two responses and that's it. And she'll say, and whenever depending on what she sees in the comments, she'll leave a hashtag and say 5011 comments. And she says that because she's asked the question, right? Let's just say 3 people respond. People should see that 3 people have answered, but what do? They keep commenting and they keep answering and they keep responding. And that's why she'll say 5011 comments, because y'all will leave about 5011 comments, even though I only needed one person, but okay, maybe 3 people. And you guys just like don't pay attention to the fact that people have answered this already, or it could even just be something where it's not even a question, but someone has already clarified something. You're like, well, hey, you got this wrong, and hey, did you hear about? And it's like, we just are not even going to. No, none of that.
Stop it. Get some help.
There was one time, this wasn't even on YouTube, but I had done this when I was doing my little movie reviews or Insta reviews on Instagram. And so I did one on Black Panther. And so I think I always would kind of do this intro piece. And I said something about, when it comes to the perception of superheroes and diversity, this and this and that, this is why some might see Black Panther as significant, although, and especially with this film, although some do forget that Blade was technically the first. I can't remember if I said I was either referencing him being I think I was referencing that his film, that was the first Black Marvel superhero that we saw on screen. And then, I said whatever else I felt about it. And of course, someone comments and says, oh, this is a great review, but you do know that Blade was the first. And I was like, yes, which is why I mentioned it in my second sentence. and for what it's worth, they circled back around. They're like, oh, you know what? I'll take the L on that one. I completely breezed by that. So it was all good. But yeah, it's just like there's this weird, just kind of, I don't know what the word is for it, but it's just like people just kind of block out or just not take the time to really hone in. And I guess some of it is just kind of that information thing. And what I had, I can't remember where I put that, but I had screenshot something I saw on Twitter because it must be very recent, but whenever there is an article, because we know how clickbait works, and we know how these titles are. And so now they have it where if you click retweet, this little caption or little informational thing comes up and it says, "Hey, you haven't read the article. Would you like to read it before you retweet?" And I was just like, so basically, you all are so bad at picking up something and running with it that they literally have to say, "Hey, have you verified all this information before you react to it?" That was the funniest thing to me. It really was.